So as we get started, I want us to watch this quick little video on everyone a changemaker. What a wonderful video. We've also just added the transcript into the chat. So if you've missed anything, feel free to check in the chat right now and just kind of read through it again. We can also share with you the link of where you can watch the video as it's on YouTube. And so, as you already may know, Ashoka is the largest network of social innovators in the world. It is also a global community of changemakers. People who work towards solving the world's most pressing problems, building solutions that are innovative, interconnected, and highly impactful. You're here because you already know who we are and what we do. Today is just an opportunity to introduce to you and to get to know more about our fellows in the Philippines. And also, as you know, Conversations for Changemaking is a kickoff event to one of our pioneering programs in the Philippines that we're just getting started this year, which is the Faith-Inspired Changemaking Masterclass. In this context right now, the circumstance we're in, the happenings of today, it seems obvious to us that changemakers inspired by faith and leaders driven by deep purpose are needed now more than ever. In this circumstance where we have a pandemic, there is an increasing level of inequality and things like that. We've noticed that our fellows and our young change makers are creating such beautiful solutions that are able to kind of propel solutions forward. We see in this community, in our community, that there are so many needs and that a lot of them are also been motivated by purpose, by their faith to move forward. So what is it? What exactly is change making, and why are we providing this opportunity for this masterclass? For us at Ashoka, change making can be described as love and respect in action. And so again, here we are at this kickoff to introduce to you this masterclass that we want to bring to the Philippines and around the world as Ashoka. So what is Faith-Inspired Changemaking Masterclass? We'll do this very quickly. It is a 4-week interactive learning journey, and we'll explore how you might build your community, grow your impact, and nurture a new generation of faith-inspired changemakers. In this masterclass, we have 3 main objectives. We want to share the lessons and best practices distilled from our Ashoka Fellows and Ashoka Young Changemakers. We've noticed that, and we've observed in their experiences, that there is so much that they do and that they're inspired by that we want to share with other people. And this is why we're here. We also want to provide innovative tools and strategies to elevate your work, whether that's through teamwork, through strategy, through how you might think about how you want to grow your ventures. That's why we're here. And our third objective of the masterclass is to build a community, an ecosystem of like-minded individuals. This is always one of Ashoka's main goals, is to bring together different individuals from around the world and to allow them to kind of work together and propel these solutions forward. But before we do all of that, today we want to do some quick introductions. So let's start using the chat a little bit. In the chat, we'd like you to introduce yourselves, as we are now up to 52 people in the room. Type in your name, your organization, where you're from, and we're very curious to know, what is one thing you're most curious about in faith and change making? Would also love to know where you're calling from. I noted that we have people calling in at 4 a.m. Good morning to you. And then if you would like, feel free to also share with us out loud. Would you like to, you could also use the reactions button you'll find at the bottom of your Zoom screen, just to wave hello. All right, I see people coming in now. Alrighty, so as I see everyone introducing themselves, I just want to go through quickly some quick ground rules for this morning. This is also a good way for people interested in the masterclass to kind of get a sneak peek on what the masterclass is going to be like. As I mentioned earlier, this masterclass won't be a regular webinar where you'll be sitting and just listening somewhat inattentively to the lessons being taught, but we want this to be interactive. We want this masterclass, as well as this event, to be a reflective session when you have the opportunity to share your insights, your feedback, your comments, as well as your own reflective feedback, right? So we can use, in this way, you can use the chat button. You can also unmute yourselves. But as I mentioned, here are a few things to keep in mind today. So first, do be mindful of your environment. These are the general basics of Zoom etiquette, perhaps. Please feel free to use your video whenever you can. We'd love to see your beautiful faces this morning. And also for your mics, do mute. Continue to keep yourself muted unless you are speaking. We do have some interesting conversations to happen today, so we would love to keep that focus on our panel as well. Next, we want for you to give your full attention. So these are ways for you to minimize distractions today. I know it's quite early and I know it is a Friday, but this morning we want you to be able to kind of focus and be active listeners. Keep your attention with us. Listen with an open mind, listen with an open heart, and suspend judgment and jumping to conclusions. Also, as I mentioned, do minimize distractions. So if you have a phone out here, if you have your inbox open, it's just 1 hour. Let's close that a little bit and be present with us today. And like I said, no multitasking. And lastly, we do want to keep this space respectful and participatory. Given that it is quite a sensitive topic, as we will be talking about faith and spirituality, I do want to note that there is a diverse group of people that have already applied, and we expect a diverse group of people around the room today. So we want to keep the space respectful, and we want to open it for generative conversations, participatory conversations. So let's just keep that in mind. Again, also, as we are in Zoom and this is a digital platform, feel free to use the features available to you. So there's the chat button that we'll be able to use multiple times today. We can also use the reactions button, raise hands, smiles, hearts. Feel free to use those today. Okay, so as we see people coming in, how about we get started with a group photo, as Filipinos do all the time. So everybody, I would love to see your faces. So let's turn on those webcams. bright and early on a Friday. I see more people are turning them on. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so look at that. Okay, are you ready? Good morning. Okay, so smile, everybody. Okay, second page. One more time. Oh, smile. Great. Happy morning, all. Okay. So now that we are here, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our panel today. In this moderated discussion, our panel will talk about how their faith, their spiritual paths, and value systems have and can continue to transform their daily lives and impact of our work. So let me first introduce Abby Mapua, our country director of Ashoka Philippines and co-founder and president of Kind Mind. Having worked in the intersections of academia, local communities, public and private sector, she has had an opportunity to cross-pollinate various disciplines and facilitate research and co-creation. Aside from leading Ashoka Philippines, Abby is president and co-founder of Kind Mind, an innovation and experience design lab that helps organizations drive inclusive and sustainable impact. Today, we also have Girlie Garcia Lorenzo, the executive director and co-founder of Kythe Foundation, Inc. Kythe Foundation is transforming Philippine public hospitals by creating a national system of psychological support for indigent parents, their families, and caregivers. We're also here with Zhihan Lee, CEO and co-founder of Bagosphere. Bagosphere is addressing gaps in the Philippine education system that hinder youth from low-income backgrounds to access meaningful careers in fast-changing future of work. And finally, we're also here with Ryan Gersava, CEO and co-founder of Virtualahan, Inc., designing a cost-effective and transferable social technology that allows socially excluded populations to access work in the global and digital economy. Thank you all for being here today. And Abby, feel free to take it away.
Thank you very much, Casey, and good morning, everyone around the world. Fiona, thank you so much for making it a blessed Friday to everyone. I hope this conversation will help you wind down for the weekend. Things probably would have been hectic the whole week. So I hope this Friday conversation will help you wind down while at the same time give you inspiring energy. So I'm Abby Mapua. I'm part of the leadership team of Ashoka. And like you, I am here today because, my faith and spirituality inspires me to make that transformation in me and around me visible and tangible. I think that's what we're all trying to do, try to make that transformation more tangible and more felt by more people. So it's interesting that the video that we showed earlier, it showed change making at its core is really love and respect in action. Pretty much. Oops, sorry, is there somebody speaking? Okay, it's gone. Pretty much what faith really is, whichever tradition we come from, it's fundamentally love and respect in action. And that is the spirit of our gathering this morning. So today, we are joined by Ashoka Fellows who have been manifesting exactly that, love and respect in action in a very big way, actually. Ashoka Fellows are systems-changing social entrepreneurs, and they tackle complex problems. And we will know more about it in the conversation. In Ashoka, this is actually what we are obsessed with. We are obsessed with transforming industries and shifting paradigms and ways of thinking and ways of doing things. Our founder, Bill Drayton, actually, here is his quote. This is what he said. We are not, social entrepreneurs are not content to just give fish or to teach people how to fish. Systems changing entrepreneurs will not rest until they have revolutionized the fishing industry or that field that they are trying to solve problems in. So it is an honor that we have 3 social entrepreneurs revolutionizing the field they are working in. So without further ado, I will jump right in for our conversation with our 3 change makers. Girlie, Ryan, and Zhihan, you all have inspiring body of work. I'm so honored to know about you, and I want to share you to the rest of the world. So I'm very curious about how you started. Please share with us your origin story. I'm so curious about, how your personal journey to finding your purpose happened. Yeah. So shall we start with Girlie? Girlie?
Hi, everyone. Am I coming in clearly? Okay, everything's
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, how did it start? Oh my goodness, that we have to go way back in 1992. Okay, so when I was taking my master's course for psychology at the Ateneo, we were required to do a play therapy course for a certain sector, and I chose the sector for children with cancer. And so when I was going to the tumor clinic at East Avenue Medical Center, then I met a boy. His name is Paul, and he had a very big tumor on his right eye. So, and I became close to him because he is a very feisty, strong-willed boy. So despite the cancer, he would really go around the tumor clinic. And when you ask him, Paul, what's your sickness? And he'll say, cancer. Why? You want one? He's that he doesn't really care that he has cancer, but he would go around. So I became close to him. So actually the very first fundraising of Kythe was because of him. So we were able to raise funds for him, and we were able to shrink the tumor. But unfortunately, weeks into chemotherapy and all that, he died. So I was devastated. So when I was going home after learning that he had died, I was riding the bus going home from the hospital. I was crying and crying inside the bus, and I said, I do not want to go back to the tumor clinic anymore, because I would just get close to a child and then I'll get hurt again. I do not want that. I mean, who wants that, right? Who wants to who could keep hurting yourself all the time? But, when I was about, near my house where I'm going to get off the bus, there was this inner voice that asked me, Girlie, if you do not go back to the tumor clinic, who will help the other children? And so, I kept thinking about that and thinking about that. And I just found myself, I was moved to just go back again the following Wednesdays, because Wednesdays is chemotherapy day. And I went back again another Wednesday. So in my journey, it's really about responding to the call, responding to a need. And that's how Kythe came about. And when my co-founder Icar Castro and I were looking for a word for our group, I was reading Father Joseph Galdon's article, and he was talking about Kything. And he said it's to manifest oneself through simple sharing and togetherness. And I called up my co-founder Icar and I said, this is the name of our group, because this is exactly what we're doing. We are healing through our simple presence, through our simple loving. And it rhymes with kite. And that's what we do. We uplift the spirits of the children and their families. So that was in 1992, and 30 years, we're still here, still caring for children with cancer. And it was all because of that response to that call, to that need. That's my sharing for now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Girlie. I mean, we know so much about your work, but I personally don't know about this story. And thank you for gifting us with that. Yeah. Shall I proceed with Zhihan?
Thanks, Abby, and thank you, Girlie. That was really inspiring. So hi, everyone. My name is Zhihan. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Bagosphere. We run what we call a human skills school. It's a school where we help young people develop fundamental skills so that they can get gainful employment. But the funny thing is that, we have trained over 6,000 people and a huge number in our community. But reflecting on this topic about faith, I realized that after a while, doing education, the fact is that I feel that I'm the one getting the education on life. And I'm not sure why, but from a young age, I'm from Singapore, if you can notice from the accent. From a young age in Singapore, probably around 8, I have kind of very deep questions about life that had really bothered me. Questions like, why do people suffer? Why do my loved ones suffer? Why do I suffer? And why is happiness transient? And why can't I be happy forever? As a young kid, I just want to play all day and be happy all the time. So I had this experience about going on a family trip where I was probably 8 or 10, I can't remember. And, my parents would bring me to my sisters to Sentosa. If you have been to Singapore, there's this place in Singapore, it's an island where, there's beaches, not as nice as the Philippines, but still good enough as a getaway for the family. And we would go to this nice resort. There's like water slides, very cool things for children to play, for kids to play. And it was just amazing. And when my dad told me that we're going to go on this trip, I was like, wow, like super excited. I was like super happy. But this was, maybe 3 months before the actual trip itself. And I realized that I was super excited while on this, this 3 months, the 3 months before the trip. And then as the days grew closer, I realized I got less and less excited. It's very weird. And on the day itself, on the trip itself, what happened was I was super unhappy. And this trip was maybe 4 days long, and I was in the resort and I was unhappy. I was unhappy because I didn't want it to end. I was unhappy because I realized I have to go back to school after the holidays, and I hated it. And it's so strange because it's supposed I couldn't enjoy because I wasn't experiencing the holiday itself. All I can think about is this is going to end, and I was being unhappy and more unhappy. So right from that early age, I had this bit of a mistrust of what it means to be happy. I somehow sense that happiness wasn't real if it comes from the outside. So it was that kind of reflection and introspection that that started this journey. And I couldn't get satisfactory answers from my parents, from my school, from books. I started arguing with people online, bulletin boards in 2001. You can call me a troll, maybe. But after a while, I kind of realized that this is going to be a process. And so my work now is kind of one of the things in this long process that I'm undertaking, right? So when I think about faith, I think about a spiritual path, and it's a journey of learning, and the teacher itself is the experience itself. So from the perspective that I take when I do my work is that Bagosphere, or the work that I'm doing, is my teacher. And I'm constantly learning. For example, as an entrepreneur, there's this constant chase for the next thing, right? Hitting the revenue target, impacting 10,000 people, raising, money, grants, and investment, getting awards, seeking all this validation, right? All this running around, just trying to get to somewhere. And I realized that this does not really lead to true happiness. From my experience, I think that it's somewhat a bit like an illusion. It can be even be an addiction. And so when I ask myself, am I addicted to work? And often the answer is yes, I'm addicted to work. Who am I? What am I trying to prove over here? So I feel that Bagosphere is a kind of like that mirror that is put up to me and is asking me, in a kind and loving way, who are you, and who is the real you, right? So while my work has taught me many things, right? Be a better leader, taught me various skills in business, etc. But from a spiritual point of view, it has also taught me to let go. It has taught me to develop a more deeper sense of contentment, peace, simplicity, and of course, love and compassion. And I think that has brought me closer to answering those questions I had, early on. And it's still a process. I'm not there yet. But it's something that I find immense gratitude for. Yeah. Back to you, Abby.
Thank you, Zhihan. I love what you said about, finding your purpose in faith is really about a spiritual journey, a continuous learning. I mean, I would think like, vision that you have set earlier on has perhaps changed and transformed through the years. And it's because of that mirror that was in front of you, learning about, Bagosphere, but also learning more about yourself. Thank you so much, Zhihan. And Ryan, would love to hear from you.
Yes, good morning. Happy Friday. My name is Ryan. And for our audience with visual disability that are currently listening, I am a brown Asian wearing prescription glasses and a white polo shirt. Thank you, everybody, for your gift of presence. Origin story. Growing up in Sultan Kudarat province, we did not have enough. But what we are abundant of is faith. I was born and raised in a Christian family. And I clearly remember since I was a child, we would wake up very early in the morning before sunrise to have our morning worship. And then our parents teaches us how to pray, how to understand God's word at a very young age. And then we would do the same before we go to sleep every night. So that has been a routine. And I didn't fully appreciate that as a child growing up, no? But that really shaped how we have become. The values that we have, and then eventually led us to the purpose that we are currently seeking. And personally, it shaped me and my siblings to start Virtualahan. When I was starting Virtualahan, it was many of you have know already the origin story of Virtualahan, but maybe very few people know that it come from a very, very dark place in my life where I was having a spiritual crisis. I already was in a point where I graduated university, I passed the board exam, but I couldn't find employment. And for the first time in a long time, I started questioning like God again because I was super depressed. And I was put into a very, very dark position in my life where I was questioning a lot of things in terms of it doesn't make sense at all, right? But then I was reminded by my favorite verse for fellow Christian believers, which is Matthew 5:16. And I was singing this song in my head just to comfort me. And the song goes, you are the light of the world. Shine your light before men, that they may see your good work and glorify your Father in heaven. Let your light so shine. So this verse became a comfort. And before even starting Virtualahan, it became like a life mission for me. It is like my purpose statement na let your light so shine before men that they may see your good work and glorify your Father in heaven. And it has manifested to me in so many ways along the journey. Being a social entrepreneur and starting a social business in the Philippines with no social and financial capital, it is extremely difficult. In the first 5 years of starting the business, we had to reset Virtualahan twice, which means we lost everything twice and have to restart it again, right? And the reason for these failures are not necessarily because of the lack of, but because of people who would try to take advantage of our situations, right? So it is extremely difficult, but having faith kept me going, and having that small miracles and experiencing that on a daily basis helped us to continue with the impact work that we do.
Oh, Ryan, thank you. And thank you for blessing us with a song. It's so interesting. I mean, listening to the three of you, and maybe I guess also, our own personal experience, we could very much relate that it seems like, purpose and calling in life is birthed from a place of pain and sadness, from a dark place, right? So with Girlie, being hurt all the time, that you become close to this child and then the person dies. And Zhihan, from an early age of preemptive grief. I mean, now as an adult, I feel that, like, I can't seem to enjoy the moment because I'm looking at the future. And that is essentially his worry, right? And Ryan, questioning your spirituality because opportunities are folding up and a lot of bad things are happening. I really strongly feel how pain and sadness could be a very good catalyst for us to actually act in compassion. And it's a way for us to connect with each other. I mean, I'm reading this book on that one, and I'm just so blessed listening to your stories. And as Ashoka, we know that we have gone through your work. So we are blessed to know these stories behind your work. So thank you very much. Okay. No, so now I'm super curious about, where is your work right now? So this is kind of spontaneous because I'm listening to your stories. I think it will help our audience also to find out, like, where are you now in your life, in your work? Where is Bagosphere, Kythe, and Virtualahan right now? What are you doing? But also I'm thinking that, Bill said, yeah, social entrepreneurs will not rest until you've seen that transformation happen. So that being said, I know that this kind of journey is not always a walk in the park. So I'm curious, how do you sustain and care for yourself and your work, yourself and your work, knowing, that in this world we will always have troubles. We will always have people taking advantage of us, as Ryan mentioned. So I want to know more about, where you are right now and how do you actually sustain yourself through the years. Shall we start with Zhihan? Hi, Zhihan.
Okay, all right. Let me try to take a stab at this. So I think that's two things for me in relation to faith and the spiritual path. One is about sustaining the mind, body, and you want to call it spirit or the feeling world, right? There's this, strong connection between the three. So it's one about that. And the other is interfaith support. We're all not Christians or Catholics, even though like 99% are, but we are not all homogeneous, right? So interfaith is a very interesting concept that I've started to explore a bit more. So on the three things, right? The body, mind, and this feeling world, right? So I've learned that things really get out of hand and get out of whack when these three things are not aligned, right? The mind, the body, and as well as what we're feeling, what's happening inside. And a lot of times, being entrepreneurs, especially type A personalities like me, very demanding, very, you want to get stuff done. We tend to, our mind tends to go really fast, right? And then, but the body is here. It's like, for example, I'm here speaking with you, but my mind could be thinking about work, right? So the mind is somewhere else. And that means that if that's not aligned, then I'm not fully present and I'm not really fully experiencing, the moment. And that can be disastrous, if it happens too much, right? So I think for me, when I think about, going through adversity and trying to run this marathon, not a sprint, it's about making sure that these three things are aligned, right? Of course, there needs to be exercise so that your body is fit, but also in a more of a, the connection, right, between the feeling and how am I feeling. Singaporeans are not very good at expressing our feelings. I know that after working in the Philippines for 10 over years, and it's true. And I learned from my team about how I need to access this feeling world because it's a source of strength. And I always tell people, non-Filipinos, that I feel privileged working with Filipinos because you guys have a enormous capacity to access that. And to me, that's kind of like a oasis or kind of like a refreshing pool of water that you can go to all the time. And I think faith is a bit like that, right? It's a natural spring where you can refresh yourself, right? And you can try to reconnect back to this inner world, right? And you can do that through meditation, prayer, being in nature, and having this sense of openness, right? So that's what I find myself doing. And onto the second part, which is about interfaith. It's, I find myself that I have to not just, in building the company, I have to also build a team that can support the work, right? We all have to have, all of us, right? We can't be doing this ourselves. But in the process of building a team, I realized that it's very important to build a team that shares my values, to share our co-founders' values. And a lot of times we focus a lot on that part, right? I mean, the skills is one important part, but there's also this other part. And I think the question that we like to ask ourselves when we look at hiring people is, what is this path? What is this person's path, right? And we don't ask religious or spiritual questions in the interview, but at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is, everybody is walking their own path. Everybody's path is different. But I think what I want in my team and we try to do is to make sure that everybody is kind of walking their own path, but we all have the same destination, right? And I'm not talking about, strictly religious stuff like, salvation or heaven or, some sort like that. I'm talking about something that's more universal, like compassion and love, right? So the destination of compassion and love. And so I want to have people in my team that is walking their own path towards that destination. And, and the more I venture in, doing the work that we do, and I go with my team, and I have team members that have, we start every Monday with a prayer, with some Bible verse, and then at the end of the week we do the same thing as well. We do that, even though we are all not Catholics and we're all not Christians, we do that. There are also several members in my leadership team that organize weekly Bible study groups, and they really find a lot of meaning in that, right? So while I'm not a Catholic or I'm not a Christian, I find a lot of value in participating in this conversation, right? Sharing this language. And so there's a lot of common ground, that I find in this journey. Being exposed to Catholics and Christians, because I was brought up in a Catholic school, a missionary school in Singapore. And so when I was young, I was saying my Hail Marys every day. I participated in Mass. So I understand. I have contact, right, with this particular faith, this particular religion. I didn't end up a Catholic or a Christian, but as I did my work in Bagosphere and I immersed myself in the Philippines, and I have team members who are Catholics and Christians, it gives me a deeper appreciation to my own faith, and also being a Catholic, right? I could really now better appreciate the things I was doing when I was young. And I think this is the core, right? That we can actually support each other because we're walking not the same path, but we're walking towards the same destination. And I think that helps me in this journey.
Wow, we're not even in the masterclass, Zhihan, and I already have 3 tools and strategies that we could, practically use in our everyday lives and work. I just want to make sure we capture that. I feel like I agree with you. I echo mind, body, and spirit alignment. That is such a powerful thing if we could practice it on a daily basis. And what you said about, how you build your team, I think it's just beautiful that there's so much respect for, different people, different from coming from different backgrounds. But at the same time, you're mindful that the person is a whole person. You're not just there for work, but you have a personal path, or you have a personal journey of transformation, and the organization is very mindful of that. Thank you so much, Zhihan. So I hope people took down notes, because I have my notes. And Girlie, can we hear from you? I know, Girlie, you're in a very interesting part of your journey.
Yes. So first, where Kythe is right now. So Kythe, we're very fortunate that our flagship program, the Child Life Services, is now a policy in the National Integrated Cancer Control Act. So, so that will pave the way for the health system to integrate psychosocial support, especially for children with cancer. So that's where Kythe is. But how we got to that is a very long and journey, and lots of sweat, tears, and heartbreaks before that happened. So with Kythe, we have two, like for me personally, I have two taglines or mantra that I always say daily. It's God will provide, and I do not believe in miracles. I rely on them. So those two. And that's what got me through the 30 years of Kythe. Um, just an example, during the Typhoon Haiyan, when all the donations, Yolanda for the locals, during all the donors were really focused on rehabilitation, disaster rehabilitation, and there were no more funds for cancer. You know, we were very tempted to, let's do something about disaster rehabilitation, all that. But our team, my board said, no, we have to be true to our vision and our mission. You have to be true to who Kythe is. And you will see God will provide. And that is true. You know, even if there were no more funds, we had to downsize everything, but then we kept on. We kept on because of those, we kept just saying to ourselves, God will provide. So now I'm retired already as the executive director of Kythe Foundation, because I would like the younger ones now to take over, and I've already established the foundation and the way for Kythe to move and soar higher to greater heights. So now I'm moving into senior senior wellness programs, because I'm a senior now myself. So that's another path that I'm taking now. And still, those two phrases, those two taglines, my mantras, I still carry them. God will provide. I do not believe in miracles. I rely on them. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for sharing those mantras. Can we borrow it and make it our own as well? We so need it. And congratulations, Girlie. I think the reason I also wanted to ask, where you are in your work right now, because Girlie being able and Kythe Foundation being able to influence policy change is a perfect example of revolutionizing the industry when we actually nudge policy change and we change how things are operating in the country. So huge congratulations. And huge congratulations also on your retirement and new work. I look forward to that. I'll soon become a senior, so I hope to be able to be part of that as well. Girlie, congrats. Okay, and last but not the least, Ryan, will you bless us with your journey?
Yes, I am just really inspired, equally inspired by Girlie and Zhihan. I learned a lot. So in my case naman, at Virtualahan, I'm echoing again to what Abby said earlier na sometimes like purpose meaning comes from a really dark place, which reminds me of the book by Dr. Philip Yancey, Where is God When It Hurts? It talks about the psychology of pain. I highly recommend it, like for you to understand why pain is sometimes necessary for growth. And that is a common denominator of people that come into Virtualahan. So we are working with people that are literally are fighting for their lives, right? Persons with disability, those with chronic illnesses. We also work with people that are in a very dark places of their lives, like people in rehabilitation center, recovering addicts, persons inside the jail. So that has been a common denominator for us. And I think without faith being integrated into our model, it won't be as effective. So at Virtualahan, we have well-being sessions that we are conducting, and we make it as what interfaith as possible, as sabi ni Zhihan kanina, na we make it a religion agnostic, but the principles are there, and there's psycho-spiritual intervention on top of the work. So the impact goes really deep towards the spirituality of the people that comes into the community, and that's what keeps the community intact. And that's also why it was rated by our scholars as the most impactful component of our program, the well-being sessions that we're having. And the pandemic accelerated the demands for our solution. And in July of 2021, the DOLE released a national memorandum mandating all of the regional directors to facilitate employment facilitation program to Virtualahan graduates all over the country. And because of that, governments started to realize that in order for vocational programs to be truly effective and sustainable, training, employment support are not enough to build up the personality of a person. I mean, like the job readiness of the person. We really need to dig deeper towards psychosocial support. And I think that's our common denominator here at, in a sense, psycho-spiritual support. And because of that, the Department of Information and Communications Technology partnered with us to have Virtualahan in each region of the country. So right now we are running Virtualahan from Region 1 to Region 14, managed by the regional directors. And the next level on that is bring that from a regional level into the local government level until it becomes normalized and institutionalized. Na every program, because of the Mandanas ruling and the new government, we are taking advantage of this opportunity to really have the local government adapt our model and run it by themselves through social franchising. And on a personal level naman, before starting Virtualahan, I went into a crisis, a lot of spiritual crisis. And I studied Hinduism, Buddhism, even went to Japan, studied Shinto. I was exposed in terms of the principles and belief system of people who do not have that specific belief system, atheism, as well as being agnostic and all of that. And it always brings me back towards the reflection of my own spirituality and how I live my life and what is really essential in life and what is the concept of deity and how faith is actually, because I think we can have multiple definitions of faith, but for me faith is an experience. It is not something that is logical that you can explain. It's not something that you just feel. It is something that you really experience. And unless you experience it, then you really cannot convince another person. It's like, yeah, you should do this, you should do that, or like be faithful. They need to see that in you and they need to experience that with you. And I think I am becoming more intentional. That's why I'm very I was talking to Abby. I was very motivated when we're bringing faith FICM here in the Philippines. I also sit on the global board of Hive International. It is an incubator and accelerator for faith-based entrepreneurs. And we are creating more communities, Hive communities all over the world of faith-inspired change-making, especially those Christian schools, helping them establish their incubators and accelerators for faith-based entrepreneurs. Because I mean, like, to those that are in the space, no, faith is not something you really talk about in the social enterprise space, in the impact space. It is more of it is, I don't know what the right words to say this, but you are more of a unique group of people versus like the norm, right? And it's so difficult to find communities of people that put faith as one of the core pillars of the work that they do. Sometimes it's even being frowned upon in the community. It's like if you openly talk about or express your faith, like people who's like you know um partly maybe because of a lot of influencers and like the fake it till you make it, a lot of you know this too much diversity in the culture that we have in the social enterprise space. Now finding a community where you can openly talk about these things without being judged, but genuinely find people that you have that same that common denominator is rare. And I'm glad that we are starting that here in the Philippines, and hope in Asia, in Southeast Asia. And I'm so glad to just be a small part of that.
Yay! Thank you so much, Ryan. Actually, that's a wonderful way to kind of close, because unfortunately we only have limited time. It's already, I'm curious of the time and conscious of the time. It's just 5 minutes to noon. I think we're gonna go a bit over time, but that's a wonderful way of closing the conversation and really just magnifying the need for this space to come in as whole individuals. Like, we're not just about the impact work that we do, but actually our spirituality is the well where we draw from to sustain our work. And we've been reading about a lot of articles talking about how the practice of faith is actually declining in the past years, and perhaps the relevance of faith is declining in the past years. I just don't think so. I just feel like it's people not talking about it. So I think it's really high time for us to be able to have this conversation and be able to talk about it. And as you say, it's always, faith is love and respect in action. It's not about coming from a specific faith tradition, but us coming together and working together for change making. So with that, I want to thank Girlie, Zhihan, and Ryan. Thank you so much for blessing us with your story. Stories that we have never heard before, even us as Ashoka. And I also want to thank the audience for coming in on a Friday morning. And to Fiona, I always check a special mention for calling in at 4 a.m. in the morning. And we're just happy that we have started this conversation. Most of you are new faces, so we're just so happy that we have new faces and new presence in this room, and we hope to be able to do this with you. Thank you so much in Tagalog. In Filipino, maraming salamat. I turn you over now again to Casey.
Thank you all. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Zhihan, Girlie, Ryan. That was definitely one of the more beautiful conversations I've been a part of, listening in on a Friday morning. So thank you. And thank you, everyone for having the space and being welcome to kind of listen in this morning. So as we close off today, I do have we have one reflection question just to ask everybody as we continue sharing and thinking about what's been talked about today. So I would like everyone to kind of check into the chat of our questions. So what is the one thing that resonated most with you from today's conversations? So share that below. We've been looking at the chat, and it's been amazing to hear where you're all coming from. So thank you. Let's continue the conversation there. And again, now that we're closing off today, here are our next steps. So first off, we would love to hear from you. So continue typing in those reflections we want to hear from you. So first, feedback form. We'd love to hear from you, especially about your experience in today's event. We will be pasting the link into the chat. So please feel free to complete that. We want to hear more about your experience. If you're interested in how likely you are to attend more events like this, listen into these conversations with our other fellows. And then second, to apply to the masterclass. So we briefly talked about it at the top of this event, but we're also opening up applications in case you haven't already to the people here this morning. So we'll also share the link here. We'll be sending an email perhaps at the end to the people that are in the room now. So you have an opportunity, if you haven't already, to apply to the masterclass. You can send in your application today up till tomorrow, and we'll go look through that, and you'll hear back from us on the 12th of July, so sometime next week. And then finally, so for the participants that have already applied and for other people that might be interested in applying to the masterclass, we will be staying after today and to open the floor for more specific questions. So if you have questions about the class, the schedule, other technical things, we'll be here with you. So please feel free to stay for that. And that is all, folks. We're just hitting noon exactly. Thank you again for spending your Friday morning with us for the first and hopefully many conversations on change making. Have a wonderful day.